Professor Spooner, how are you?
Okay, thank you, Frank. How are you?
Well, thank you.
Been another rather depressing week, and it's made me think very much again about things we've talked about before. The fact that one of the biggest problems as we look forward in what the rest of the process of globalization, one of the biggest problems is how to organize everything. But we haven't really explained why that should be such a problem, since after all we've been organizing things for 200,000 years or more.
Hmm.
So why should we suddenly have a big problem now? And it occurred to me this morning that the root of this problem really is in the increasing inequality. And that is not only making it very difficult or defeating our efforts to organize for climate change, but also it's disintegrating our democracies.
Hmm.
Democracy works. There's no point in giving each person an equal vote if people themselves are unequal. And it's very difficult to have a democratic system that actually takes care of the problems of inequality. And the inequality, as everybody knows, because it's in the news all the time, has been getting worse and worse as globalization progresses.
Well,
Uh,
go ahead, excuse me.
um, so far, we have no idea how to. I mean, all we get told every day is who the richest people in the world are and who's richer than whom. And now the fact that our current president is concerned that there are richer people than him who might win the election in 2020, and nothing about how we might solve the problems of inequality. And obviously, it's inequality that underlies the problems that Macron is having in France, and it's inequality that defeats the efforts that have been made so far to find a way to get everybody, all countries, in order to defeat or reduce the problems of global warming. Because every country has different problems, and in every country, however you choose to resolve the problems, it's going to be better for some people than others.
Well, it used to be as well that inequality has been with us forever, but it used to be that within the social structures that existed, whether they be community, family, religion, whatever they might be, people could remain nestled and secure within those little protective areas. And as those protective support systems have been completely or oftentimes dissipated and reduced to nothing, people are now out there, quote unquote, out there in the great global social mix. And you do find people comparing themselves to Bill Gates or Jeff Bezos. And it used to be back in the old days, you would compare yourself to the people within your church parish, for example, and realize that you weren't that much worse off than they might be, and you would be fine, and you would be relaxed and okay with that. But
You didn't have a global voice.
that's correct.
Uh,
On the one hand, the positive of having the global voice is a good thing, but the negative is that you're being marked. You feel you're marking and judging yourself against the standards of that global voice, and all of a sudden the safety net's gone psychologically.
so the people, what's the best way to say this? The people who have been able to manage everything in spite of inequality in the past are now defeated by the fact that the people that are suffering from inequality have a bigger voice than the people who've been doing the organizing have had in the past.
Well, that's the logical next step of what happens. You're right, exactly. I mean, as because of the communication and contacts allowed by the increasing globalization, people now have been able to see where they stand relative to all others, not just within their previous little social slash religious slash community group. And then those same tools that provided them with that recognition now gives them the opportunity to organize and respond to that. And I guess that's what we're seeing.
And I think that that is the root of the problem with Brexit as well.
Without doubt. Without doubt.
Although I'm sure that the people who voted for Brexit don't, if you ask them why they did it, they wouldn't say it in this way, but they become a bigger, what should I say, their problems of inequality become more difficult as the community becomes larger. And if they can get back to a smaller community, they have a better chance of doing something about the problems that they suffer because of inequality.
Well, let me ask you a question. Clearly, metaphorically speaking, it's impossible to go back and shut the windows down and lock them against globalization forces. That's impossible unless we disable the internet and reduce cell phone plans or eliminate cell phones. I mean that can't happen. So the next thing then that we always talk about is it's almost we're at a junction. All right, people are going in the direction of either becoming citizens in this new globalized world, figuring out where their identities are in the context of this vastly expanded landscape, or are the institutions that we've always talked about, the church, community group, family, governments, that are so lagging behind, do they realistically have a chance of becoming nimble and agile enough to follow along as in this path of increased awareness to provide the support for people?
As we've said in the past, we have no way so far of providing public services beyond the nation state. And in fact, some of our democracies, especially the American democracy, is against the idea that government should provide public services anyway. So there is really nothing in the works at all for equalizing the situation, the social situation of large numbers of people. And the reason that we haven't had this problem in the past is that people have been used to inequality and had no expectation that their situation could be improved.
Well, I'm just thinking from a purely human social perspective. Then, what happens next? I mean, people are going to begin to peel off. Excuse me. People are going to begin to, I think, peel off on their own and say to themselves, look, this isn't working. There's a climate change coming in 60 years. The global leaders can't even agree as to how to deal with this. We're facing possible extinction eventually of mankind on Earth. My lifespan is finite. I'm taking my family and all that are important to me, and I'm going to go in another direction, isolate myself from society, and do the best I can that way. Historically speaking, I'm sure that we've seen some precedent for this, right? As society moves in a direction that others just are dissatisfied with, don't people go off on their own? Isn't that what's going to happen next year?
There's no space left for people to go off on their own. With a population of 10 billion or more, global population of 10 billion or more, it's not going to be possible for even communities to isolate themselves from what's going on in the world in general, because not only because of the global density of population, but also because of the fact that there's so much interaction, communication between any part of the world in any other part of the world.
But
So
there's plenty of
the,
there's plenty of virtual space. I'm going to shut up after this. I can't tell you how many people I know who have terminated their Facebook accounts, their Instagram accounts, and their Twitter accounts.
I know.
They've said the hell with it. I'm out. So
I've been thinking of giving up telephones and stopping not using email anymore for the same reason.
well, so I mean that dynamic is there.
I wish I could stop the United States Postal Service delivering junk mail to my door.
Well, remember when that was our biggest problem, the arrival of junk mail at our door?
Hmm. So I think that what should I say, this sinking into political chaos is going to continue. One assumes that there won't, however, be economic chaos. Because even if people can't agree with each other, they'll still do their best to trade with each other in order to save their own economic situation. So I think that probably in the long run, the solution will have to come from some sort of economic agreement. And this brings me to another topic, which has been in the news a lot recently. I have never quite understood why there is so much argument about trade. I don't understand why, and perhaps this is simply because I'm not an economist and I don't do anything that myself that has anything to do with business or trade. That people don't just trade freely all the time. Why does there have to be trade agreements? Why are there different tariffs in every country? What good does it in fact do any country to separate itself by trade contracts? This is something I have not understood and still don't understand. And I assume that this is gradually going to become a more and more important part of the way the world is organized.
I think if it may be simply the last vestiges of any sort of ability to do anything that governments have as they continue to erode in importance, for them to be able to take care of special interest groups within their borders by imposing tariffs on their behalf against other countries that are trading goods into their economy made by those same types of producers. That's the only justification that I can think of.
And this would be part of the same process that I think it's come up in previous conversations that we've had, that as the nation state works less and less well as globalization continues, what takes its place is major companies that provide their own infrastructure.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm wondering whether economics is going to be the basis of politics in a globalized world.
Well,
that will provide flexibility in a way that politics tends not to.
It's interesting as well because that's an interesting observation. Because if you look at companies such as Apple and Google and Microsoft that seem to be expanding simply beyond the economic zone into the zone of social / community caregiver to their employees, right? With the free lunches, the social aspects, the daycare, the after work activities, filling in those gaps now that had formerly been there. It could be that these companies become the identification points to the whole host of people that have now become unattached.
Mm-hmm. Yes. I mean, everything that we've has been the basis of organization in the past, such as religion, various ideas that were important in the ancient world that changed as in the medieval period, and the way things changed again after the Industrial Revolution. The economic factors have, in fact, all the way through been the only stable factors that fill in all the gaps. And of course, it's economic factors now that are the basis of the inequalities that we're suffering under globalization. But at least they will continue to provide a basis of organization in a way that politics and certainly religion apparently no longer will.
Very interesting. Well, we may have well, we seem to have a little bit come full circle, but on the other hand, we might be at the on the brink of beginning to accord some new level of responsibility to these major companies. That not only are they economic giants, but they are soon to step into the roles of providers of community slash religious slash social support structures that are now absent, if they wish to come onto this stage and provide such things.
Well, and also the global economy continues to change,
Mm-hmm.
and that is a positive factor. So even though Google and Microsoft and Apple are now maybe the most powerful companies, or certainly among the most powerful companies, that's not likely to last indefinitely, because everything that's happened since the 17th century, since the beginnings of some sort of globalization of finance began, has gone through a steady succession of different stages, because of the way we move from one set of resources to another set of resources all the time, and the interaction between different parts of the world changes not only because of technology, but because of what's actually going on in different parts of the world.
Well, very interesting, Professor Spooner. Well, I'll tell you, there's never a dull week, is there?
I wonder what's going to happen in the coming week.
Well, we could. It's like throwing a dart with your eyes closed. No matter where it's going to land, it's certainly going to be something worth talking about. That's for sure. So, all right. Well, thank you very much. We'll look forward to next week. Good speaking with you.
Next week. Bye.